Hello guys, welcome back, and in this lesson we are going to consider CSS selectors. So CSS selectors are used to select specific part of the HTML that you want to format or to add styles to. So without further ado, let us dive in and see how to do this. So I'm going to create two divs here, and then I'm also going to create a second div. So on the first div, or let me say the first selected that we're going to consider is the ID. ID is used to create a specific identifier for that specific HTML element or HTML tag. So in this case, let us say this, we'll call this div1. So this ID needs to be unique since it is used to identify a specific HTML element. You need to make sure that these ID are not the same when you are specifying them. So in this case, now I have given an ID to this first div and then the second div. Let me just add data here and say this is the first div, and then on the second div I'll say this is the second div. And now here on our CSS tag here, on our style tag here, in order to format the specific first div here, I'll need to select the ID, and the way you do that, you use this hashtag here and then the name of the ID, which is div1. All right, and then you just apply the CSS styling like that. So I just say, for example, background color, let us say maybe yellow, and then for the second ID, what I can do is that I can say like that, and then I can say background green. So the first one will apply on the first ID and the second one will apply on the second ID. So if I go here and do a refresh here, as you can see now we have two divs, and the first one with a background color of yellow and the second one with a background color of green. So the next selector that I want us to consider is classes. So classes, you can apply class to more than one selector. So for example, we can say that we have a class here, and the class we can say this is div, or let me say my group. This is the class. So you can say my group. Then we can also have a class on the second div here and say my group one, right? So now to apply CSS styling to a specific class, you use this full stop or period and then the name of the class, which is my group, like that one. And then you do this. Then let us say maybe color of the text should be yellow, or let us say white. Color of the text should be white. So that will apply on the first class. In our case now, if I go here, I do a refresh here, now you see the text is white. So on the same, if I want to apply on the second class, styling on the second class, I can just copy this, I'll paste here, and I'll say my group one. So let us say on the second, I want to put a color of maybe red. So I'll go here, I'll do a refresh, and now we have a color red for the text. So the other thing about classes, as I've told you, is that this class you can apply the same class on different divs. Unlike the IDs whereby they ought to be very specific for a particular tag, classes can be the same across different tags or different elements. So in our case, let us say I just remove this my group, and now I apply my group one on both div1 and div2. If now I go back here, I do a refresh here, now we have both red, the text color red on both div1 and div2. The other thing again is that I can be able to apply styling on a single, or let me say I can be able to apply two classes on a single HTML element. So I cannot be able to apply two IDs like this. I cannot say this will be wrong. But classes, I can have class 1 or my group 1 here, and then I can copy this, and then I can say my group 2 like this, all right? And then now I can copy here and I can say that for my group 2, I want to have maybe, let us say, a padding of 20 pixel, 20 px. So that will create padding on this first div, and will also apply a color red on this first div since I've used these two classes. So if I go here, I do a refresh, now you see there is a div on this first class. This is also on the second class, and that is because I've used my div 1 instead of my div 2. So let me just change this to my div 2 like this, so that it applies only on the first div. All right. So the other thing also that you can be able to do is that you can be able to apply, you see, instead of doing this, let us say, for example, you want to apply stylings on my, let me just use an example on this top guy here. This one will make more sense. Let us say both div 1 and div 2, I want to apply the same styling on both of these divs. So one of the way that I can be able to do this is very simple. I can just use a comma here to separate the selectors like this, and then I'll paste here. Let's say both of them I want to have a background of yellow, so I can now just delete this one like this. So this should be hashtag here like that. And then this will apply the styling on both divs. So if I go here, I do a refresh, you can now see both of them have a background of yellow. And even to go further with this is that now if I say I can apply the same tag that I want for the divs, let us say I want the divs to have maybe a padding of let's say padding of maybe 20 px, while maybe div 1 to have let me just do this and say div 1 to have maybe a background of black, while div 2 to have a background of yellow. So I can put here black like this, and then div 2 will be yellow, while both divs will have a padding of 20. So I can use this styling here and this tag here, and it will apply on all the divs. And then for specific divs, I can use maybe these IDs. And maybe if I have a group of divs whereby I want to apply some styling, I can use classes for those divs. So if now I go here and do a refresh here, so now we can see we have the divs with the padding, but for the div 2, it has a different background color as compared to the div 1. And then now I can say maybe I want both div to have a color for the text maybe to be white. All right. So if I go back here and refresh, all right. So we have this first div and then also the text on the second div. And now the good thing with this is that, for example, I want to apply padding only on the first div. Anything that I write here, for example, if I say padding maybe 10, this padding will overwrite this padding on top here. So if I go here and do a refresh, as you can see now the first div has small padding as compared to the second div. So always remember the last style sheet here, or the last style that you apply here, will override the first styles. The other thing that I wanted to show you is that let us say, for example, we have this div here, and let me just cut this. Then inside this div now, let me create a paragraph here, and then on this paragraph, let me say this is a test paragraph like this. So if I want to specify, or if I want to format or to style this specific paragraph for div 1, what I can do now is that once I've chosen the div like this down here, I can simply do something like this, and then I can say space then P. So this P will mean I want you to find the paragraph which is inside this specific div1 and then apply the styling. So let us say, for example, the padding, I want the padding to be maybe 50, and also the background color to be maybe green, right? Something of that sort. I don't know how it will look. So now if I go to the browser, do a refresh, as you can see now we have the paragraph inside the div, and the padding is quite huge there. And then we have the text inside there. So this is how you can be able to specify styling for a particular element or tag inside another element or tag.